Okay, great. So, before going through the platform, the tool, I want to go through some slides to explain what we do in EndNote, right? So as an introduction, EndNote is a reference management tool. It's basically a platform, a software where you build your library, you collect the references that you find interesting, you manage them in many different ways. I'll show you that, different features to help you manage your references. And then that's the tool that helps you to format your references, right? So these are basically the main features of the platform, right? So here from a research perspectives, when we do research, obviously we collect lots of different literature, but the end goal, as in the Web of Science, is to save time. I still see many researchers doing what we will do today manually, so which is very, very painful, quite difficult and complex to maintain. Stay organized, especially when you work on a large team. Collaborate with colleagues, you know, instead of sharing references manually by email, printing a paper, and so on. Here, a few clicks, and you can share whatever you want from EndNote. You can work from anywhere, so I'll explain about that. EndNote is typically installed in a machine, PC, Mac, and so on, but you can synchronize with an EndNote online that you can access from anywhere, as far as you have internet connection, of course. And write faster. This is the, I think, the most powerful functionality on formatting references in Word, but also now we have in Google Doc, in Mac as well. We have a plugin, a functionality that helps you to format references quite quickly. On top of that, there are features like finding and editing PDFs, creating bibliography automatically, and that helps you to with large-scale literature reviews and also share what you do with colleagues. So again, three main goals as a researcher when using EndNote: save time, stay organized, and collaborate easily. So different functionalities: find and save the literature, work from anywhere, research better, generate bibliographies through lots of styles, thousands of styles. Even in EndNote desktop, if you don't find the style, your style within the 7,000 styles that is possible, some journals might tell you, well, we use a slightly different version of style ABC, right? In EndNote, you can create that style. And that style EndNote will help you write faster and also stay up to date. So where you can have like automatic references. What we've done when we released EndNote21, when we developed EndNote21 rather, we worked with users, we worked with researchers through interviews and surveys, and we asked them, okay, what do you need in a reference management tool, right? So all these different features are driven by the feedbacks, the needs of researchers. In EndNote21, something quite new to previous versions, you organize your references with tags similar to what you could do in your mailbox. Very important, it's the restoration and recovery of your library. If it happens, you know, your computer is having some issues and the software crashed, and then you think like, okay, what happens to my library? EndNote Desktop gives you options to restore and recover your library. And EndNote21, when you use EndNote21, you have access to the new version of EndNote Web. So it might be confusing. EndNote21 is a software. It's an application installed in your machine. EndNote Web is a website. So you have two versions, but you can synchronize both of them. So whatever you do in one appears in the second version, the other version, and vice versa. And when you increase the sharing capabilities, you can share literature with more than 1,000 colleagues. Yeah, so this is an example of, so this is a screenshot of EndNote21. That's a library called My EndNote Library. And as you can see, some of the papers here, year title, some of them have different tags, different colors here. So I can see Corvids, EndNote21, Falcons, and so on. It's quite interesting it's a visual way to locate papers related to topics of interest. So these are tags, but we still have, as we used to have in other versions, the groups. We call that groups. They're basically folders, a group of papers. Um, I'll show you how to create them. And then you have groups of groups as well. So yeah, so very important element. If you already use an EndNote desktop version, or you collaborate with someone who has EndNote version, but maybe not the EndNote21, when you share your library, because that's something you can do with colleagues, um, your colleagues who use a previous version of EndNote, they won't see the tags, right? Those tags that you created, because the previous versions don't support those tags. But they can still see the literature also, of course. For those using EndNote21 and future versions, obviously they will be able to see those tags, right? So it's the same content being shared on different versions. It's just that previous versions don't support those tags. Just be aware of that. In Note Web, the new version looks like this, right? So it's an improved version. I will still show you the old one. It's a improved interface, right? And design. The previous version was a bit old school. And you get access to this new version for 3 years from the activation date, basically when you access EndNote21. Right, so before doing that, in your preferences, I'll show you how to do that in EndNote21. You need to enable the synchronization with EndNote Online or EndNote Web, and you need to provide your credentials, so username and password. Yeah, and few things that are coming. Some of them are already there in EndNote Web, how to import for file types other than RIS. So there will be more extensions being supported. Yeah, so this is how it looks like if your machine or software crashes, you cannot open it. But that's fine because you can still recover the previous version. And it looks like this, right? So you cannot open the library, that might happen. You say, okay, synchronize. If there's a version somewhere online in the cloud, um, and then you say you want to recover the library, right? So it's basically two options. If it's already synchronized, you can simply bring back the synchronized version. If it's not synchronized to the cloud, then you can just recover the library. On top of that, something interesting also is you can, if you make a mistake, that might happen. I don't know, you had this one and then you had this one, sorry, this reference, January 5th, 2022, but you see it's not complete, right? And then you have a similar reference, right? Same title, same journal, but different years for some reason. So you can decide which version you want to keep. I'll show you this, especially this might happen when you collect references from different sources. You might get some references like, especially like, early access um, or a preprint, right? And the reference is not complete. Or for example, you don't have the PDF in there. You don't have the file and so on. So you might end up with what looks like duplicates, but they're not duplicates. They're really different references, and you can decide which one you want to use. That might happen when you write a paper, you collected references, and then in your literature review, you collect again, you get back the same reference, so you end up with two references. There is a quick functionality where you can compare duplicates and you can decide which one you want to keep. Um, Yeah, so you can also decide which version you can bring back in terms of library. You can share with colleagues, as you can see here. So these are some of my colleagues, and you can give them different rights: read only, read and write, and so on. So up to 1,000 colleagues. That's pretty big. I can imagine doing that at a department level, or even at faculty level. You know. Or let's say department level where you have few hundred maybe people, um, and you share the most relevant, most important library literature in a single library. This is something that is possible. Yeah, and something quite new that was not supported in previous versions. You have the cite while you write, so SWYW, cite while you write tool that is now also available within Google Doc, similar to what we have in Word. And it's available in Google Workspace Marketplace. Right, so anyone can install the plugin from the Google Workspace Marketplace, but you obviously need to activate the EndNote21. Very important information is that, and that's my advice, if you're used to write on Microsoft Word, right, and you copy that text, you put it in Google Doc, that won't work. It won't work, right? So don't switch between word processors. But if vice versa, same applies. If you work with Google Doc, you copy that content that includes citations, references, and you paste it in Microsoft Word, that obviously won't work, right? Because these are two tools, different technologies. So the links to the references might break. Yeah. So in terms of what's new, so you can restore the libraries to different dates, right? So if something wrong happens with your machine, so you can restore to previous dates. Word Online, that's also there. Before it was only Microsoft Word installed in your machine, but if some of you use Office 365, you can use Word Online. That's Microsoft Word Online, and you can use EndNote Cite What You Write as well. Okay. Yeah. So this is on Mac, as you can see. You can decide how you define a duplicate. In my version, in my preferences, sorry, when the author, the year and title are the same, well, that's a duplicate to me. And then by default, I would tell EndNote I need to keep the reference that is most complete. For example, if the DOI is in one reference but not in the other, um, and that other reference has more data, I would consider that reference as the most complete. Yeah. So you have few options here. So which one is the newest, the oldest references with attachments? So you decide what you define as your primary reference. Okay. So in terms of support, so like today, you get training session by myself, but that doesn't stop there. We have a knowledge base where you can ask any questions because you can see EndNote is quite powerful in terms of functionalities. And yeah, so you'll find some articles like how can I use Google Doc Cite while you write, for example. Um, Frequently ask questions. You can email our support team. You can learn by yourself. You'll see lots of recordings there, like sessions on demand, but also live sessions, public webinars, and you can also ask technical questions. Okay. Yeah, and very important, a YouTube channel. EndNote training with lots of videos there. So what's new in EndNote21, but also how to use EndNote21 in 7 minutes. This is in Windows, the same in Mac. Um, yeah, a class recording, EndNote20 Essentials, 1 hour, 30 minutes that you can play back anytime. Okay, good. So that was for my introduction. So what I want to do now, I want to show you how EndNote21 works. And before doing so, just keep an eye on the chat. Okay, no questions. Okay, great. All right, so this is Web of Sense. We'll come back to that in a moment. I have EndNote desktop installed. So that's the first step, is to install EndNote in your machine. Your library can help you with that. Um, I will not update it now, but as you can see, I'm running this version. Would you like to install this update? Just want to see very quickly. Okay, improve PubMed, search results, resolved an issue, and so on. Yeah, so this is the history of updates. So this is the latest one. I will not do it now, just for the sake of uh, the demo. By default, it's opening my library, right? So I have about 1,300 plus references. So these are papers that I found relevant. So this is my personal library. Okay, I'll come back to this library later on because it's quite complete. But before doing that, I'll close it. When you open EndNote21 for the first one, you'll get something like this. So it's asking you, what do you want to do? Do you want to open an existing library? So that's what I will do later on, or create a new library. So in your case, that will be this option. So think of it as you have a nice building or a nice house or in a university, and you say, well, that room over there, that big room, that's going to be my library. So that's what we're going to do now. So I'll create a new library. I'll save it in desktop and say this is okay, and I will save it. All right, so it's creating now my it's basically creating my building, right? My room where I put my where I will put my content. And as you've noticed, so this is the library. ENL stands for EndNote Library. And then it also created this folder, which is basically data. Very important information I want to share here is that these two files, so file and folder, they need to stay together. They need to be in the same folder. So here I save them in my desktop. Obviously, you want to save them in a better place like my documents or in your research documents and so on. But don't be surprised. This is where the data will be saved. This is the library file that is that EndNote opens, but the data is saved in this folder. Okay. Next, I got my nice room, like in my house. I have my shelves and everything. I need to bring some stuff to read. So that's the first step, to collect references. Collect references, there are many ways to do that. I'll show you a few ways, and then it's up to you. It depends on your workflow, but for you to know, there are many ways to collect references. Okay. Let me start with the Web of Sense. You remember that was a question that was asked by some of your colleagues 2 weeks ago. How can I save the literature from Web of Sense to EndNote? I'll do a search, quick search. Let's say ascorbic acid, whatever. In Web of Sense, when I do a search, let's imagine I find this paper quite relevant, but also this one. I can pick whatever I want, and then there is an export function. EndNote Desktop or EndNote Online. I'll pick EndNote Desktop for now. And Web of Sense is asking me what you want to save. So I have selected 3 results. That's what I want. I can actually export 1 to 1000 records. What do I want to export? So I like to export full record, but also full record and cited references. It doesn't really matter. Full record means not only the author, title, and source. I need the DOI. I need the full data. Cited references would be the references cited by those 3 papers. So it's up to you to and say, and here, as you can see, you also have a custom selection, custom fields. Like if you want the ISSN, fine, no problem. You want the PubMed ID, you want the fields, the keywords, you pick what you want here. Okay. Also the funding information, that's an important data that is available. For now, I will just say full record and export. What Web of Science is doing, it generates a file here, which is saved in my downloads. So my downloads here, you can see saved records. It has CIW, it's basically the ISI export file. So I can open it from here. What I usually do, I simply open it from here. And EndNote knows that this is a file that will be opened by EndNote. It is file, it's an extension that EndNote knows how to handle, right? Knows how to handle or deal with this data. And now I have my references. Those 3 papers, ascorbic, acid, and so on, I get all the data that I need to cite these papers later on when I will be writing my manuscript. So you see, it's only a few clicks. I've done my search query, selected what I want, export, and click. So I get all this data, you know, like the abstract notes and so on and etc. So this is for Web of Science, right? In Web of Science, for you to know as well, I mean, I could do that. For those of you who use RefWorks, I can export as a RefWorks file, RIS, BibTeX, doesn't really matter. EndNote knows how to read those files as well. Like if I do RIS, right, full record, export, right? So it's the same data, same name, but the extension is different, RIS. If I open that, you got it, right? So now I will have, I've imported 3, that these are the last 3, but if I go all references, I got 6, and obviously I have now duplicates, okay? So this is for the Web of Science. I mean, you could tell me, well, I might cite some papers that are not there in the Web of Science. That happens if the paper is published in a journal that is not indexed or a different type of paper. Let's have a look at PubMed. For those of you in the medical field, my work, what you need to keep in mind is when you search in databases like this, there is always an export function. It's just that it is called differently. In Web of Science, we call it export. In PubMed, they call it send to. So if I say send to a citation manager, right, and I want to create a file, it's now creating a file, PubMed Ebola, because I search on Ebola. And you see the extension is nbib. That's basically the file coming from PubMed. Again, I simply open that file and I get my 3 references. So I now have 9. 3 plus 3 plus 3, 9. Works in a similar way in Google Scholar. So if I show you Google Scholar, let me do something like this. So I take something else, COVID, right? And say, for example, okay, this is an interesting paper. In Google Scholar, they call it Cite. And interestingly here, so they give you some references already formatted if you want to copy that manually. But here they give you the EndNote file. This reference in an EndNote file, right? So here I can simply click EndNote, and now same story. They call it Scholar for Google Scholar, and it's an EndNote file, ENW. So that's an extension for EndNote. Again, I click on that extension, and I will get that single reference I exported. what I do in Google Scholar when I don't find papers in Web of Science, here you see my library. I can export all my library, like you see the reading list. So I have quite a few papers there. I can export all of them to EndNote, export all articles in my library, and then if I open that, so I will get quite a few now. So I now have 25 references that I imported in a single click from Google Scholar, right? So now I have 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 1 plus 25, that's 35. So that's for the collection, right? So any tool, any platform has an export function. Scopus has one, Dimension has one, even the journals themselves. Let's have a look at Archive. Archive, if some of you use preprints, let's say this is a topic of interest. Let's have a look at this preprint. Right. You can export to BibTeX. You see that? Here they give you some citation tools, but here I can export to BibTeX if I want. Yeah, so they have it in yeah, so I can go back to Google Scholar and export from there as well. Okay, site. Yeah, so that's basically so just keep in mind that any platform has a way to export the data, the metadata that you need when you will cite the literature. So that's for the collection. There is another way, which is you search the databases, but directly from EndNote. So here I can do an online search. I can search in PubMed, let's say all fields, and now I want to search for diabetes. Okay, so now it's gonna search in PubMed, but I'm in EndNote. Yeah. Yeah, there's someone unmuted. I will just mute him for now. Yeah, sorry for that. And yeah, so as you can see here, I'm searching PubMed. It found 1 million papers, but I'm in EndNote. So here I can decide and say, okay, this is interesting. And so this is a search that is valid only for this session. If I close EndNote, this is gone. So I can decide and say add references to, and I can create a group, right? The same with Web of Science. I can search Web of Science Clarivate directly from EndNote based on my credentials. Okay. So that's basically the second way of exporting or getting references. So the first way is you go to the database and you export, or you stay in EndNote and you search the database directly in EndNote. Last but not least, like very the last way, you might tell me, well, this is great, but I want to cite something that is not available in databases, like a report, newspaper, a movie, um, a comedy, whatever, right? Whatever you want to, a blog, right? So you can still create a new reference manually, and I recommend you do that. Like that's the last option when you want to create a reference to something that is not indexed, that is not available in databases. So I'll show you how to do that. Like you create a reference, and the first thing is you tell what it is. So for example, in my field, we refer quite a lot to reports, like reports from OECD, from World Bank, from United Nations, from UNICEF, and so on. So that would be a report. But you can cite a podcast, a patent, a map, a manuscript, and so on, right? A regulation, an interview, whatever you want to cite, a dissertation and thesis, a website. right? Or an episode on TV, television episode or encyclopedia and so on. So for me, what I usually do, I would say World Bank, who's World Bank reports, I would do World Bank like this, and then I would say this is a 2020 report. I would put the title. Um, um, sorry, and then I would put the what would I need? The date, DOI if it has a DOI, URL, very important. If I get the full text, I would attach it here, and I would get my reference. Okay, but that's basically what I would need. Yeah, so no, I don't want to save this reference. So that's how you collect references. Now let's speak about managing references. You know, it was few clicks. I getting references is very easy. But now what do I do with this? Because now it's all messed up. You see, I have references about Ebola, about COVID, about um, scientific mobility, and then diabetes. What I recommend you do is the following. You can create a group. I usually like to create one group per study, right? So here I would say this is my COVID group. I create another one, which is diabetes. Then the other one is, what was it? Ascorbic acid. And then the other one is cytometrics. That's basically my field. So we'll go here and I'll say, for example, any field, COVID, and I retrieve that single paper I exported from Google Scholar. I want it in COVID because now I just want to keep things organized. I will do the same here as Corbic. So I'm searching those references and you retrieve those. You see? Yeah, so here I see those 6 references. I'll keep them like this for now, although they are obviously duplicates because I exported them twice. You remember it was from Web of Science as a Web of Science file and then from Web of Science as an RIS file. So I exported them twice. It was about ascorbic acid, right? And then the other one is diabetes. Sorry, I have to go to all references. Okay, I'll go unfiled references. Yeah. And then here, because this is where I'm searching, unfiled, those that are not in a file or in a group yet. And I'll do, did I export them? I'm not sure. Then I have those that look like mainly scientometrics data. Yeah, so here I could select all of them, Control A, and then move them to, sorry, no, I have one about Ebola here, and then I have one about Ebola, so let's do that. Yeah, so you see I had 3, and you could do select all, move, or right click, add reference to. I don't have an Ebola group, so I'll create a new one. And I will call it, rename group, I will call it Ebola. Right? So I will now say right click, add references to Ebola. Okay. And now I have those 25, which looks like it's only cytometrics, like, you know. So I can select all of them, Control A, and then move them to cytometrics. So that's how you manage references. You can create groups. So these are my groups. I can decide with my colleagues working in cytometrics, I can say share group. But I need to wait for this to synchronize with my EndNote library so that I can share it with them. They will get a notification by email and so on. So you need to give it a little bit of time. Okay. Um, then you have lots of functionalities in terms of managing your library. If you go to a library here, you'll have find duplicates. So in Scientometrics, no duplicate, but I know I have duplicates. Where do I have duplicates? You remember? I have them here. So if I go to all references and I do the same, now it's going to search in my whole library and I say find duplicates, right? It's telling me, well, this looks like, they look like similar. Okay, so which one do you want to keep? So you see here the title is, the journal is in capital letter, the journal title, journal name is in capital letter, and the other one is not. Here has the article type. I have the ISSN, right? I have the accession number on Web of Science. I got some information about time cited and so on. And I decide which one do you want to keep. I'll keep this one. To me, this looks better, right? I keep this record. And now it's moving to the next one. You say, well, Nielsen 2000, number 1, that's the first reference I ever imported in my library. Looks again the same as this one. Which one you want to keep? I want to keep this one. And then which one you want to keep here? I want to keep this one. And now I have no duplicates anymore. And if I do library, find duplicates, no duplicates, because the 3 duplicates, they are now in trash. They've been deleted. So this is how you can, and then I can uh, shift click or control A and simply say delete. All right, to delete, or you could also do empty trash, well, which is now empty. Okay, so this is an interesting functionality to keep things organized, right? Find duplicates. Right, so now let's have a look at another functionality. Let's have a look at this one, which is I'll select everything, Control A, and say right click, find full text. Here, this is something we would need to check with your library. So I'm affiliated with the University of Leiden in the Netherlands. And to get this window, I will show you how I've done that. I'm telling EndNote, try to find the full text, not only on the internet, if it's open access, that's great, but also through the library catalog. So if we subscribe, if the university subscribe to those journals and the full text is there, I want to bring in. I want to bring in that full text. So I'll say continue, and it will ask me to log in, right, with my username and password, but that's my university password, right? So how to, and now it found a PDF, right? And it's indexing the PDF. And it was quite fast, as you can see, but it found the PDF, but also attached the PDF to the reference. So for instance, here, let me show you. If I look at this reference, it has now the PDF attached, and I get the full text automatically attached to the reference, right? Title, abstract, introduction, the affiliation of the authors, and so on, right? So how do we do that? If you go edit, preferences, I have find full text. EndNote will search on the full text link, the DOI URL, and my university library, they told us, here is how you can access the library through Easy Proxy, right? So we give you some examples here. And the first time you would have to log in with your university email address or username and password, okay? And that's how it search for full text. Then now that we are in the preferences, let me speak about the preferences. I don't know if you noticed, but it found the PDF, but also something that was done automatically. It has renamed the PDF. Sometimes when you download the PDF, it has like a strange name, like the DOI and so on. I tell EndNote to rename the PDF with the last name of the author, the first author, the publication year, and the beginning of the title. And this is how you do that. You go to in the edit preferences, PDF handling, and you say author, year, title. And then how do you want to, where do you want to save it, right? I save it in my downloads in NodeClick. I'll show you how it looks like. Right, so this is my folder where I save automatically all my PDF. Okay. What's interesting here when I do, for example, I'm writing an essay, Rodriguez, right? Um, Rodriguez. Let me pick someone else that I know. Right. So you see, in my documents, I have several papers by this author, right? So it's also a good way to find the full text very quickly without opening EndNote desktop because the the PDF, sorry, has been renamed already. Okay. Yeah, and the duplicates, you remember? So these are my settings. When the author, the year, and the title are the same, I consider these are um, uh, duplicates. So that's how you can manage references. There are quite a lot of functionalities you can explore with the library and so on. So now let's have a look at the formatting. So for that, I will open Microsoft Word because that's the tool I use. I'll create a new document, right? When you install EndNote Desktop, depending on the machine where you are, you will see that you get a new menu that is called EndNote21. Same as Grammarly, Acrobat, those additional plugins that you can get in Office, like in Excel, in Word, and so on. The beauty of this tool, so by default, when you will install EndNote Desktop, it's going to be there as EndNote21. And that's what I recommend you use to format your references. So let's say it's pretty big, so increase a little bit. I write my paper and I want to cite someone. I go here, EndNote21, insert citation, and then say I'm interested about funding, right? Or I put the name of the author. Um, sorry, so I would say, yeah, funding. And then, yeah, so yeah, I was searching for Waltman. So, but here I'm in the SKU library, which is limited. So this is my library that we just created. So I was searching for something that is not in Sultan Qaboos University library that I just created for today's session. But we do have something about Ascorbic, you remember? So these three references. Nielsen, that was the first paper I ever imported in this library. And I want to click and say insert, right? So I would cite Nielsen 2000. So that's the reference I want to bring in my manuscript, right? And that's great. That looks good. So I would say references in the bottom, right? And I can keep writing and cite someone else. Now I will do Ebola. Yeah, so I want to cite this one. Sorry, I'll take this one. Okay. In my field, we use a lot the APA7 style. So here I can change the style if that doesn't work for you. But as you can see, it's formatting quite well. Bachelor comes first automatically. That's the APA style. And the APA style is last name and the publication year. So that looks good. You might tell me, well, Nielsen here, I don't want to show the was accession number. So that's possible. Um, in 2000, maybe this paper doesn't have a DOI. Maybe it was a bit uh, too early, and I don't want to show that it is an article, right? So I can go here, and if I go all references, or it's actually in ascorbic acid, so I can change the reference. For example, I don't want to show that it's an article, and I don't want to show the accession number. That's not necessary. And if I go here, it will ask me to save what I've done. Um, yeah, and if I go here and I say update citations, now the accession number is gone and the article between bracket is also gone. So my advice is you're right. Whatever the style you're interested in, that doesn't matter because I'll show you one functionality that is quite powerful. Let's say I cite another paper. Actually, I'll cite several papers. So that's possible. Several papers in one shot. So again, so now I cite. Let me do. Let me let me do something on in my field. Yeah. Right. So these four publications, I want to cite them together in one shot. Right. So Control A or select click or Shift click, and then I can do that. And as you can see, APA perfect B, H, K, M, and N. That's the alphabetical order. You might tell me, well, Jamal, I don't use APA style. We use something else. Now here you can select in those styles. For example, numbered style. So that is by order of citation in the manuscript. So it has converted automatically. Okay. And I can move this. So if say, you know what, those papers in my literature review, I don't want to cite them, and it updates automatically the references list. Or you say, you know what, I will move them in my introduction. I want them to be before those two citations. And I simply paste them, just pay attention here. So it was 1, 2, 3 to 6. And you'll see it will update the by order, right? So 3 to 6 becomes 1 to 4, 1 becomes 5, and 2 becomes 6, right? So that's also the beauty of EndNotes, where especially when you write large manuscript with lots of references, you don't have to handle that manually. Like the order, the formatting, and so on. You could do something like this as well. So I write in. This is something that comes back quite often. I usually write in times, and if I remove this, you could tell me, well, I mean, something wrong. References here also in times. How come the references are not written in times? You need to go into EndNote21. You go into bibliography here, layout, and here you need to decide the font of the references. So I will pick the same, which is Times New Roman. I like to make it smaller, so I usually write in 12 and the references list in 11. That's fine. And here I can also decide on the indent, first line, hanging, line spacing. That's basically what the journal would tell you. So here, if I put double, let me put it single, but space after double, you see it's going to do something like this, right? So now the references list is in Times New Roman, and I inserted a double line after each reference. Obviously, I can change that back to whatever works for you. Let me keep it single. And let me bring back APA 7 style. You can create another, you can select another style. You see, by default, you'll see like 500 styles installed, but you can go up to 7,000, it's quite big. For those of you like BMC, Chicago, if I go IEEE, for those of you work in engineering, for example, IEEE is there. So these are the journal names, and you can also sort on category, right? So yeah, so that's basically how it works, like nature, style, and so on. Okay. So let me bring back the APA 7 style. Yeah, now that looks correct. This is a manuscript, a working version, sorry, working manuscript of your paper. And as you can notice, if I click on the reference, it puts the reference or the citation in with a dark gray background. This content is written by EndNote. I didn't write this manually. I didn't write it myself, right? It was brought in by EndNote. So I can save this into my desktop, and I will call it a working manuscript. Typically, when you're happy with your manuscript, I recommend you convert this into plain text. So if I could say convert citation and bibliography to plain text. This command will create a new copy of your manuscript to remove all special EndNote markers from it. The new document will appear in a new and saved document window. The original file will remain open and untouched. Do you wish to continue? And I say OK. And you see now I have two identical files. Let me put them one side by side. So I have one here and one here. Right. The difference is that this one is the working manuscript with the link to EndNote Desktop. This one is plain text, right? So you see, if I click here, there is no more links to, there are no more links to references. And of course, I can save that and so on. Okay. Is there any questions? We're running out of time. Any questions on this? I covered everything I wanted to show you. Any questions on something specific you want me to cover here? Before I forget, something I shared with your colleagues last week and the week before, I'm because I usually get a lot of questions around like manuscript, finding journals to publish. I have a free newsletter where I post lots of guides, templates, how to respond to reviewers, as you can see here, how to write your discussion guide. Quite useful for early career researchers or young researchers. But also, I'm writing guides for more experienced researchers, like, on getting funding, grants, collaborating with the industry, improving the impact, and so on. So I do speak about that in that free newsletter, and also this is where I announce the webinars. Someone yesterday contacted me and saying, when is your next webinar? So this is in March. We speak about specialized content when you search for literature, when you do literature review. And recently I conducted this one, which was about the importance of collaborative research. These are monthly webinars. So this is for February. This is for March. You get a certificate, you get the announcements, some tips, practical guides, and so on. So this is where I announce them in my newsletter. Yeah, so any questions on EndNote? Something that I've mentioned here, I can manage tags. So you know what? Let me close this library and let me open mine. Sorry, file, open recent. That's my personal library. Okay, so as I told you, these are different studies, old papers that I wrote, like about 10 papers. Each paper had a group of references, and then I have like classic literature based on my um, research interests. Yeah, so you see those papers with a tag. So how do I create that? Here, right click, and you say manage tag. Sorry, no tag for this one. What is it about? Um, Let me go here. That will be easier. So all these papers, I could do that. Right click, manage tags, and for that, these would be mobility papers, scientific mobility, right? I could do this, say OK, and then they will all get the green tag. Yeah. Um, Something that also wanted to show you is the following. You can also add your publications. So I have my 11 publications here. Here, as you can see, some are reports, some are journal articles, conference proceedings, dataset. Everything that you create, you can add it directly into your publication. And that's quite powerful because another way to cite literature, let's say you prepare my CV and I need my references, a list of my publications. There is a quick way to do that, automatically formatted, especially when you do that, when you put that in your CV. So let me reduce the size of this window and the same here. I've done that, quite powerful. You can select all of them. And here you also have the functionality to insert a citation. And now I have all my list of papers automatically formatted. I can copy that, put that in my email, in a report, in my CV, and so on, right? I don't need this, right? I don't need that. I just need the reference list. So that's also quite powerful when you want to create. So just select what you want and click on Cite here. Yeah. Uh, Okay, so there's a question from in the chat which says, I have a question. I have previously used EndNote Web, and I downloaded recently EndNote app, and synchronization is done. Okay. Um, Whenever I try to reference my text, it will go to EndNote Web. How can, okay, perfect. Yeah, very, very good question. So indeed, in the preferences here, you can synchronize. You have you go to Edit, Preferences, Synchronize, and you see here, I synchronize this library with my, so you can synchronize only one EndNote library with my EndNote account, which is my university email address and my password. The question is that when I use EndNote Cite while you write, here it's EndNote21. But before, it was, so as she mentioned, was using a different version. You can switch here between EndNote21 and EndNote Web. How do you do that? You go to Preferences, Application, and you decide which application you want to use, EndNote or EndNote Online. If you say EndNote Online, it will ask you for username and password. If it's EndNote, it doesn't ask because it's considering the library that you have installed. EndNote, the library that is installed and open um, in your machine, in your PC. I hope this is clear enough. So if you use both versions, if you are using the machine where EndNote Desktop is installed, I recommend you use EndNote21. How do you switch? Preferences, Application, and you select the application here, EndNote or EndNote Online. Imagine you travel, you don't have the PC with you where EndNote21 is installed, but you want to access your library, you simply go to EndNote Online, and then you can get access to your library. Yeah, a question from Sheriff. I shared with, okay, great to see that is fixed. Perfect. Question from Sheriff, how can I reach your previous seminars? So the two that I've done with Sultan Qaboos University, I've shared them with the library. So I'm sure they will host them in the library portal. On top of that, if that's of interest, I have some free courses on my website with certificate. You can watch them on the previous webinars. So it's free. It's basically recordings, right? So journal search reports, research integrity, most impactful emerging disciplines, highlights, dissertation and thesis, how to increase your grant success, and so on. You simply pick the ones you're interested in. Let's have a look at this one, for example. And then you take the course, you register, and then at the end, when you complete, you get the certificate. I can share that with you in the chat if you want. Okay, I missed the questions in the Q&A section. There is a question. Say you turn the manuscript draft to plain text and send it to other authors. Then they added in some edits and requested to add references to manuscript, edit references. Can you turn back the plain text Word to EndNote or export references so you can edit them via EndNote? Yeah, that's a very good question. So that's why the conversion to plain text, you do that when the manuscript is considered as complete, right? Um, because you break the links to the references, right? So as you can see here, the links are still there, but if I convert to plain text, I just broke that link. Might not be an issue depending on the style that you used. What I recommend is that conversion to plain text, you don't do it until the manuscript is complete. Even if you share this manuscript to someone who doesn't have EndNote, that is fine. When collaborating, I think it's more like a way of working as a team. I recommend someone, especially the first author, right? Like colleagues say, yeah, here maybe it would be great to cite this paper, just as a comment, right? So you say here, let's say new comment, and on the right I say, please cite author ABC, right? And the first author will manage that. I say, okay, this paper, he wants me to cite it, and so on. So that's the way I've done it with my co-authors. I was mainly managing the referencing. Okay, there's a question from Zainab. Could you show us how to reference the WHO site, if possible, manually? Thank you. Yeah, so you see what I've done. I've done so many. If I go to my references, um, well, lots of journal articles, but also some blogs, books. And if I go down, you'll find reports, as I told you, OECD, UNESCO, Royal Society, and so on, United Nations, web pages on Clarivate, but also from the OECD, some declaration from ministries, and so on. If so, I don't know what you want to cite, but if you say World Health Organization, I believe what you're trying to achieve is the following. They might have publications or report. Let's say this one, UHC Global Monitoring Report. The way I would do it would be like this. Let's take this one. This one is an interesting one, right? So I have the title, the year, the date, and the URL. So I would do something like this. I would go to EndNote, reference, new reference. I would say it's a report. And then I would say it's WHO. I put the comma. The year was 2018. The title was, I would put the URL because I already copied the URL. And the title is this, right? Sorry, a note. So that's the title. And just to save some time before I forget, I can download it. So let me download it in my on my PC. And still loading. Looks like a pretty big report. Yeah, 156 pages. So I put it in my downloads, that's fine. And I go to, I mean, ideally I would put it in my folder where I put all my PDFs. And I can attach the file. So that's it. That's the PDF attached. Save. And I have now, I can close this reference. If I go to EndNote, I have now the reference. Okay. And I don't know if you noticed, the PDF has been renamed WHO 2018 with the title, because that's what I asked EndNote to do. So, sorry, it has attached the PDF, but the PDF has been renamed in the reference. And now I can do that, right? So let me remove this. I want to cite the WHO report. What I do, I just say insert citation. Let's search for WHO here, and I say insert. And that's it. I have now my reference and citation. Could you show, that's another question. Could you show how to cite students' thesis through Al-Manzuma? Well, I don't, you need to help me, Zainab here. How do I access Manzuma through, uh, let's see. Yeah, you need to help me. How do I access Manzuma from your website? I'm sure Manzuma has an export function somehow. Uh, Yes, Amjad, the question is, does Sultan Qaboos have subscription of EndNote? Yes, you do have access to EndNote desktop. And question from Prem Kumar, is there any way we can practice face-to-face like our library have expertise? Yeah, that's something you should raise with the library, and I'm sure they will be happy to assist you. And indeed, librarians in Sultan Qaboos University and librarians in general, very experienced with similar tools. So I don't know how I can access. Yeah, so the website crashed somehow. Let me see. The library. Okay. Yeah, Zainab, in the Q&A section, maybe if you can just share with me the link to Al Manzuma, I can have a look. Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know how to access Al Manzuma through the website, so I'm not sure. Okay. Um, all right. So that's all from my side. If there's no other questions, you give me a little bit of time. I will share the materials with you, the link to the recording of this session, the presentation. You'll get my contact details, and let's keep in touch. So, as I said, I do conduct quite a lot of sessions on different topics, usually one different topic per month. And if you have any, if you require any assistance with your research projects, or you have any specific questions on journals, funding, collaboration, all these questions around science, feel free to contact me, and I'll do my best to assist you. So that's all for now. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best, and yeah, let's keep in touch. Take care. Bye bye.